And this straight pine with the flagging around it is actually a Scots pine or Scotch pine. It's not native, as the name implies. It's from Europe. Normally over here, Scots pine is very gnarly and twisted as a tree. This is one of the straighter ones I've seen at Nassahegan State Forest. It's got 2 needles and a very small cone. The needles are also extremely short, so you should not mistake them for a pitch pine or red pine or white pine just with the length of the needles alone. But if you look carefully at the upper stem, it's yellowish, smoother and yellowish in coloration. If you see a pine where the upper half is distinctly yellowish or orangish yellow, that's probably a Scots pine. Okay folks, this is the same Scots pine. We had to drop it to the ground, and the reason is the Connecticut Agricultural Experiment Station has identified this tree as a nursery tree for the invasive southern pine beetle, which came to our state for the first time just a few years ago. It's not been long. But southern pine beetle, which is actually native to this continent, is actually moving its way further north, perhaps with climate change, and it is a threat to our pitch pines. Now this is a Scots pine, and this, along with most of the red pine we have, are non-native. They were planted originally by the Civilian Conservation Corps in the Great Depression, but they seem to be very desired by southern pine beetles and will help bring southern pine beetle into the area with places with native trees that we really do not want to see infested. Now when you look at this one up close, notice that there's a lot of little white spots, white flecks here. This is what we call popcorning. They look like little popcorn sticking out from the tree bark. These are what we actually call pitch tubes. And pitch tubes are a tree's defense mechanism. Basically, the tree recognizes the invasion of the insect, and it surrounds the insect with pitch and literally exudes it from the tree, trying to expel it from the tree. And it actually is successful a lot of times. I have an example right here. I know this is probably pretty tiny for my phone, but here's a popcorn I cut and broke apart, and it actually had a tiny little black beetle in it. As you could see there at the tip of my finger, most of these little popcorn pitch tubes are like that. You cut them apart, you're going to find a little southern pine beetle inside that got sent right out of the tree. So I hated to do this. It was a nice straight tree, but at the same time, it's not native. And I certainly had less hesitation to take something down like this rather than one of our native pitch pines, which are all over the area. So it's something that had to be done. This is a nursery tree. So with southern pine beetle producing generations as many as 2 to 3 a year, we kind of wanted to get this down. So this means that any that are still in the tree are going to die, and it will not be around next year to continue reproducing the beetle. And now I'm showing you the upper part of that same Scots pine to give you a closer up look at the yellowish upper bark I was talking about. That's pretty diagnostic of Scots pine. And then when you swing around here, this gives you an idea of why we really want southern pine beetle under control in this area. All of these overstory pine trees left over are pitch pines, and we've also very successfully regenerated pitch pine. This cut was only done less than 2 years ago, and we've already had a ton of germination of pitch pine, and most of these seedlings were not even visible until this past summer, year 2021. And some of them are already over 2 feet tall. So it's just been amazing, and we want to preserve all of this and enhance it as much as possible, because the pitch pine sandplain is one of the most imperiled ecosystems, if not the most, in the entire state. And we have about 11 to 12 threatened and endangered species associated with it. So it's very important to protect this entire cover type as much as we can. And southern pine beetle is a threat to it because it attacks most of what we call the hard pines: Scots pine, red pine, pitch pine. and to some extent even Norway spruce and sometimes white pine. Here is the southern pine beetle trap that was catching the adult beetles in the area. Right now we're about 200 feet away from the Scots pine that we just had to drop that was nurturing all of the southern pine beetles. You have a beetle pheromone that's attached that attracts the beetles that are in the area, and they go through this funnel trap system. They cannot come back out, and they end up down the bottom, which contains some alcohol. And then once a week the trap has to be checked by the foresters here or the Connecticut Agricultural Experiment Station, and they analyze whatever beetles are captured. So this is a detection method. It really doesn't draw in invasive beetles that are not already in the area, but it makes an excellent detection method, and it's really helped out here in my pitch pine stand.